beautiful people. I hope everyone out there is doing phenomenal. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back if you're returning. My name is TatiV, and if you're a true crime lover like me, go ahead and like the video, leave a comment down below, and of course, hit that subscribe button. I post true crime videos here on this channel every single week. And also follow my TikTok. I post true crime snippets there as well. And be patient with me because I literally just made it like 2 weeks ago. Well, probably like a week ago. And I'm not all the way there yet. And I'm not good with the creativity yet. So today's video is based on the fat ass devil, Joel Guy Jr. His parents worked so hard and bent over backwards to take care of this young man just for him to turn around and kill them. This took place back in 2016. He killed them in the worst way, the most gruesome way, the most disturbing way ever. And it was personal. This was personal. So, here's your warning. Before your warning, I am going to explain the case in very, very, very detailed of what he did to his parents. So if you're not into gruesome detail, if you're not into blood, if you're not into stuff like that, then this video isn't for you. Now I know I said that my last video was the most disturbing case I've ever read about, but this definitely tops the cake for real. Not only because it was of how gruesome it was, but of how personal it was too. So I'm gonna change the title to this. Just a random thought. So when people decide that they want to kill their parents, whether it's about insurance money or whether it's because they want to be with their boyfriend or girlfriend, exactly how far do they think they're gonna get away with this stuff? Like, you really think you're going to kill your parents and just live a happily ever after life? Like, you just think that you're gonna kill your parents and just go run away with your boyfriend and no one's gonna come looking for you? Like, every time I read about these cases, I just get so confused because it's like, I mean, how did you think this was gonna end? Like, okay, I'm done rambling. Sit back, relax, grab some wine, grab some popcorn, grab a bottle of water, grab some soda or pop, depending on where you're from, and sit back, relax, and enjoy some crime time. Warning, this content is for educational purposes only. Some viewers might find this disturbing. Parental discretion is advised. Joel Michael Guy Sr. was born on February 10th, 1955. He was a pipeline engineering designer. His plan was to retire from his career. Lisa Guy was born on August 8th, 1961. She was a human resources accounts payable administrator at Jacobs Engineering in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. Joel Michael Guy Jr. was born on March 13th, 1988. He attended Hunville High School. He graduated from the Louisiana School for Math and Science in 2006. Joel's big ass never had a job and was taken care of by his parents, even at the age of 27, 28 years old. Joel enrolled at George Washington University, only spending one semester there. He then enrolled at Louisiana State University and lived in Baton Rouge right until the time of the murders in 2016. He was in the works of becoming a plastic surgeon. When Joel Sr. met Lisa, he had 3 daughters from his first marriage. At the time, they were 3 years old. Joel Sr. and Lisa had a close relationship with his daughters. Joel's half-sisters and Joel Sr.'s sisters stated socialize with family. Both of Joe's parents kept all of Joe Jr.'s childhood belongings memorialized in a bedroom in their house. The bedroom held pictures of Joel as a child, containers of stuffed animals. The parents shared with the family that they were no longer going to support Joel Jr., and it was time for him to become financially stable on his own. Of the sisters stated at the trial that, quote, our dad said that Joel Michael was going to be cut off and was going to have to stand on his own 2 feet. Lisa agreed, end quote. She said the issue had been an ongoing family discussion. The parents just recently sold their home on Golden View Lane and they were retiring. They had to be out of the house by December 13th, 2016 because the new homeowners were moving in. On November 24th, 2016, the family decided to have Thanksgiving at their home on Golden View Lane and also celebrate their moving and retiring. This would be their last family get-together. During their family gathering, the sisters stated that Joe Jr. was acting very strange. That day, he was more outgoing. He usually never came out to talk. One of the sisters testified that Joe Jr. took her kids upstairs to the bedroom where his, quote, trophies were and gave away his stuffed little bears to the kids. One of the sisters said she didn't even think Joe Jr. knew her kid's name. One of the sisters went to her car to grab her clothes so she can wash them. As she walked past Joe Jr.'s car, she noticed he had 2 large tow containers in his back seat. At the time, she didn't think anything of it. She just assumed his clothes were in there. The sister was washing her clothes. She stated Joe Jr. was standing behind her. Every time she turned around, he would be standing behind her. Joe Jr. had a notebook full of detailed notes that described exactly what he was going to do and how he was going to murder and liquefy the remains of his parents. It included notes such as her life insurance, mine, with him missing/dead, I get the whole thing. All her other assets are joint. Go to him if missing, unknown if he is dead. Her car, his SUV, his boat, his old truck. Get killing knives, quite multiple. Get sledgehammer, crush bones. Bring blender and food grinder, grind meat. Does not matter where they're killed. Minimize things I touch throughout visit. Wear gloves and socks to prevent fingerprints and footprints. Cut off his arm and plant his flesh under her fingernails. Place her hand with his DNA so that his DNA is not washed away. Originally, Joe Jr. was going to kill just his mother for her life insurance. He figured his dad was going to want a percentage of that, so he had to kill him as well. Days leading up to the murder, Joe Jr. bought supplies for the murder and tried to liquefy his parents. On November 7th, he bought multiple items from Ace Hardware, muriatic acid and food grade hydrogen peroxide. On November 18th, at Home Depot, he brought a bleach sprayer, extension cords, and a timer. On November 18th, at Academy Sports, he brought a marine-style knife. On November 21st, at Walmart, he brought 2 large plastic blue containers. On November 26th, Joe Jr. attacked his father with a knife, stabbing him at least 42 times while he was exercising in a bedroom on the second floor. Based on evidence, there was a struggle. Blood was everywhere. The blinds were torn, and there was an exercising machine flipped over. Joe Sr.'s clothes were cut from his body and left in a pile. 2 large knives were left nearby, and his bloody pack of cigarettes laid on top of his clothes. Afterwards, Joel Jr. severed both of Joel Sr.'s hands and left them on the floor by the exercising equipment. His arms were severed from the shoulder blade and his legs severed from the waist and placed in one of the plastic totes full of chemicals. While Joel Sr. was attacked, Lisa was at a Walmart getting groceries for the house at 12:15 p.m. She returned home shortly after dropping the groceries by the door downstairs. She proceeded to go upstairs. That is where she was attacked with a knife. 9 of her ribs were severed, and she was stabbed at least 31 times. Her clothes were cut from her body and left in a pile where she was attacked. Several bottles of cleaning supplies were placed there as well. Lisa's head was severed and placed in a huge stock pot with the heat turned up high. Her legs were severed from her hips, and her arms were severed from the shoulder blades and placed in the other blue tote with acid. Both of the bodies had a large gash after they were deceased so that the acid could get into their bodies faster. During the struggle with his father, Joe Jr. had a deep cut to his left thumb. Around 3:30 p.m., Joel Jr. was seen on surveillance footage purchasing a first aid kit, hydrogen peroxide, and alcohol. That Sunday, Joel Jr. drove back to Baton Rouge to treat his cut at the student clinic. Lisa didn't show up for work, which was way out of her character. Jennifer, which was Lisa's boss, grew concerned of her absence, so she contacted the police to do a welfare check at her home. Joel's senior daughter's birthday was the very next day. His daughter found it suspicious that she didn't hear from him, so she also contacted police for a welfare check. Knox County officers showed up to the home of the guys to check on them. They noticed the back doorknob was broken off. Through the open hole, they saw the groceries by the front door and saw it was perishable items like ice cream, sausage, and bacon. They could feel the intense heat and smelled a strange odor. One of the officers made entry inside of one of the cars and pressed a garage door opener, which allowed access to the home. When they entered the home, they discovered both of their wallets and a sledgehammer on the kitchen table. The groceries were on the floor. As they climbed the stairs, they heard the dog barking and noticed blood at the top of the steps. Also, I forgot to tell you guys that before he actually killed his parents had a dog, which Joe Jr. put the dog in the laundry room and didn't harm the dog, but he killed his parents. So that's why a dog was barking upstairs. Now, back to the story. Continuing throughout the house, they cleared 3 other bedrooms that were empty until reaching down the hallway. That is where they discovered the severed hands of Joel Sr. They discovered the liquefying remains in the tote bins located in the master's bathroom. They immediately contacted CSI, and this was now a crime scene. several days, and he was taken into custody on November 29th in the parking lot of his apartment in Baton Rouge when he attempted to leave out. When Joel Jr.'s car was searched, they found a meat grinder in his trunk. Joel Jr. filed a motion to be given the death penalty if he was convicted on all charges. His trial began in November of 2020. It lasted for about 4 days. Joel Jr. was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. He was also charged with abuse of a corpse. While serving his time, allegedly, an inmate has claimed Joel Jr. has had fantasies of gouging his eyes out. In a note that was collected by authorities, in the note, it stated that he wanted to harm another inmate while he slept. In his note, he stated, quote, "I'm writing this letter because I don't want to end up with a disciplinary infraction, or worse, more criminal charges, nor do I logically believe that this gentleman needs to be blind. I do not know what to do. I shouldn't be allowed access to another person while they're unconscious," end quote. Rest in paradise to two beautiful humans. I am deeply sorry that you had to go out in the worst way by the hands of your own son. I pray that their family finds peace and strength. Thank you all so very much for taking the time out of your day to watch this video. If you enjoy this type of content, go ahead and subscribe, like, and leave me a comment down below of this case, or if you have any questions, or if you want to request for a story for me to cover, leave everything